Started. Hi all, and welcome to the HubSpot External Tech Talk, aka latest developments. Hello to everybody in Ireland, everybody in America and elsewhere. If you're watching this from a recording, I hope you're doing so in a COVID-free world. Here's to hoping. We believe in you, Pfizer. My name is Aidan Sliney, and I'm a Director of Engineering here in HubSpot. I help look after the mobile team, so everything that HubSpot builds on mobile. I look after the growth team, think about things that we build to get more and more people using our product. When someone asks me what my job is, ultimately I'm an umbrella. I put the umbrella up to stop all the rain coming down on the engineers. And when it's sunny, I step to the side and let them do amazing things. So what do we have in store for ye tonight? This is a HubSpot External Tech Talk. Let's break it down into what that exactly means. First, HubSpot. This isn't the sales pitch, okay? So I'm not going to go into detail about what HubSpot does. I'm guessing by the fact that you're here that you have some idea what we do. But for those of you that need a reminder, I'm going to explain it like I explained it to my parents. HubSpot automates business. It allows them to automate how they sell. It allows them how to automate how they market, and allows them to automate how they look after their users. What is Tech Talk? Tech Talk is what HubSpot do every 2 weeks. We get all our engineers into a room and get 2 or 3 amazing engineers to talk through all the things that they're building. They talk through the what, they talk through the why, and they talk through the how. This is something that we do all the time, and it's been in HubSpot for many years. The reason we do it is because we believe we can all grow together. One person learns something and we share that to everybody else. We all learn from each other's battle scars. We all learn from each other's achievements. So this isn't a tech talk. This is an external tech talk. So what does that mean? It means that we're going to open it up to the outside world. We're going to share some of the amazing things that we are building inside in the company, and it's open to everybody. Obviously, we usually do this in the office where we get to shake hands with everybody. We actually get to see each other face to face, and we get to have conversations. We eat pizza, drink beer and Coca-Cola. Obviously, this time we cannot do that. It's going to be remote, but the content is going to be as good. We just have less pizza. Okay, so we have 3 talks lined up today from 4 amazing top engineers. Firstly, we have Isabel and Antonio. They're going to talk through the mobile team, how we work, a few key projects, as well as the architecture of the mobile product. I work every single day with Isabel and Antonio. They're both amazing, so you're in for a really, really great talk there to kick things off. After that, we're going to have Mitchell. Mitchell is going to talk to us about creating building blocks. He builds out our CMS project, and you cannot do it without thinking as building blocks rather than just writing code. And finally, last but not least, we have Kevin. Kevin is going to talk about working on improving our reliability in one of the most important parts of our project, and that's billing, right? When you have a project that has billing in it, reliability is absolutely key. What we found in HubSpot is the more time we spend on reliability, make things better and stronger, our metrics and our users just get happier and happier and happier. So how is this going to work? We're going to go through the 3 talks, but at any time, if you have a question, feel free to hit the button on the bottom of your screen that says Q&A and leave a question there, right? So if the question is about HubSpot, if the question is about open positions, if the question is about a talk that you're going to hear about today, just leave your question there. And when we get to the end of all the talks, we'll take some time and we'll answer all the questions, right? So get those questions in there from the very, very start of all the conversations. Okay, let's get the show on the road. As I said, the very first talk we're going to have is Isabel and Antonio. So over to the 2 of you guys to give your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the HubSpot webinar. And today we're going to be talking about mobile development at HubSpot. My name is Antonio Pinho. I'm a senior software engineer at the mobile CRM team. I'm Portuguese. I'm also half Brazilian. I've been working at HubSpot in the past 2.5 years, living in Ireland for the past 7 years, and I love to travel.
Hi, my name is Isabel. I am the Android tech lead at the mobile sales team. I'm also Brazilian and Portuguese. I moved to Ireland in 2016 and started at HubSpot in 2018. I used to play football every day in Brazil, and I miss the weather a lot. But I'm happy here in Ireland working in this amazing company, and I have my family with me, and that's all I need.
So today we're going to be talking about how we do mobile development at HubSpot, what are the important metrics for our apps, what are the cool and amazing features that our team has been building, our team structure, and our tech stack. The HubSpot users can access HubSpot through the web app and through our iOS and Android native apps. Our mobile app is an extension of the web app instead of being a replica of it. This means that we don't have all the features that web has available on mobile. Instead, we just focus on the use cases that make more sense to our mobile customers. So what are the important metrics for our apps? A very important metric is our App Store ratings. On iOS, we have 4.6 out of 5, and on Android, we have 4.2 out of 5. So we have very good ratings.
So we don't want to be just a copy of the web application. We want to bring more to our users, to leverage on the phone's hardware, apps, and most common use case. So we need to think about how can we bring an extra value to our users with the mobile app. The two features I'm going to present here are good examples of that. So the first feature I'm going to present is the business card scanner. This feature allows the user to enter a new contact in their CRM just by scanning a business card. So as you can see here, I use the camera to scan a business card. It will detect the edges, send the image to the backend, and I will select the correct text and create a contact. So why we decide to build it? Salespeople spend 8% of their time manually inputting data into their CRM. This is monotonous and takes too much time. So how did we solve it? A good card scanner is one that requires minimal input for the user. To be able to achieve that, we broke the problem in 3 parts. So the first phase, called capture phase, is the step where we detect the image, detect the edges, crop, and do a perspective correction to get the image ready for the next phase. We use Firebase OCR and Android and Apple Vision on iOS to detect the edges. Our developers implemented the perspective correction by themselves. After that phase, we go to the OCR phase, where we send the image to Google Cloud Vision to extract the text from the card. So when we have the text, we use regex to identify phone numbers, email, and website. Then we send the rest of the text that was not used before to our machine learning platform to get some score for what can be the name and the job title. After that, we have the classification phase. This phase not only allows the user to fix a possible mistake, but also helps us to improve our model. The other feature I'm going to present is our new developed HubSpot Keyboard. Our users needed an easy way to send snippets, meeting links, documents, and codes to their prospective clients. With the custom keyboard, they can select this directly from the keyboard and insert it into the any app. So in this example here, I want to send a message to Antonio via LinkedIn to say that HubSpot is hiring. So I can go to LinkedIn, searching for Antonio, click on sending a message, select the snippet with all the information I want to send. So why did you do it? So the idea came from a brainstorm between a PM and a developer. And in one of our decompression sprint that I will talk later, the developer decided to implement it. We did some user tests with the POC and the users love it. So we decided to release. But we had some challenges as well. The iOS allocates a limited memory for the keyboard, around 30 to 40 megabytes. So if you use more than that, the keyboard will be forced closed by iOS without any crash report. And for the iOS also, the keyboard is an extension of the main app, and we can't get anything we want from the app. So if you need to transfer any data, you need to use, for example, default groups. And also reports such as amplitude and New Relic, they don't work inside the keyboard. So we needed to do a workaround. So we had another endpoint that we need to send the information to the endpoint so it can send to New Relic and amplitude. It also has different life cycles from the app. And on the UI side, we needed to make clear that the user will understand that they We are not going to send any private information. And also the screen size was a challenge. How can we put everything we want in a limited size?
So what is the team behind all these amazing features? Our mobile team is split in 3 different teams. We have the CRM team, we have the sales and the foundations team. Each one of these teams takes care of a different part of the mobile app, different set of features as well. For each one of these teams, we have something called a triad. A triad is comprised of a tech lead, a product designer, and a product manager as well. We also have like iOS engineers and Android engineers, and our foundations team also has backend engineers, and these support the rest of the teams. At HubSpot, we really value diversity, and we believe that to think different, we need to be different. This is something that we want to get better, and we are working on it. But our mobile team is a very good case of this because we have 29 people in total, and from these 29 people, we have 13 different nationalities. Fun fact, we're just missing 2 continents here. So it's a very diverse and very international environment, which makes it very interesting to work with. One thing that I love at HubSpot is our company culture code. If you've never seen it, I highly encourage you to take a look at it. At the mobile team, we come up with our mobile principles. They are based on a company culture code. Our customers are everything for us. We say that customers come first, then the team, then the individual. We like to keep it simple. It's more important to deliver value over perfection. We ship it, we measure, and we iterate. Our teams are fully autonomous, and we mean it. We encourage over-communicating, especially if you have an entire company working remotely, right? This is very important. And to finish, we're always hungry for more and for better.
So in the mobile team, we work in a 2-week sprint model, doing planning, stand-ups, retros, reviews, and refinements. But every quarter, we have a decompression sprint. So what is that? It's a 2-week sprint where you can focus on something different from what was planned. Maybe a really nice idea that was not the focus at the moment, or a technical debt that were never prioritized. The rule is we should bring value to our users. So does a refactor bring value to the users? Yes. If it reduces the development time in the future, it will bring value to the user. So what is an example of what you shouldn't do? You shouldn't use this time to develop a new app for you, for example. So how does this work? You pitch the ideas with data, if possible. You pick what you want to do. You develop without interruption. And finally, you present to the team. So a good, nice example of a feature that we started on the Decompression Sprint is the keyboard. And we end up releasing it to the users. So I mentioned that we can solve technical debt in a decompression sprint, right? But this is not the only time where you can get rid of them. So we have a meeting every week called Android and iOS Assemble. And in this meeting, we can add all the things that we want to change, remove, or try inside our code base. So for example, we want to experiment with a new paging library, or we want to remove all the warnings or migrate to coroutines. In this meeting, we not only define that, but we also pick something that we are going to be responsible for. So in that way, we keep our code healthy and moving forward. So you are probably thinking, you mentioned about the team, the diversity, the culture, and the process. But what about the decisions? How does a triad make a decision to improve a certain user flow as opposed to migrating their database? Or to add a new feature as opposed to refactoring code for a set of existing features? The Mainsail was created in 2017 to help product teams understand the most basic needs of our customers and prioritize those against one another. So the idea is to move up the Mainsail, starting at the bottom, by get each level healthy before focusing on the next level up. The lower part of the Mainsail are the guardrails that need to be in order before we can start working on the value and growth.
So what is the tech stack that we use in the mobile team? At the mobile team on iOS, we develop using Swift. In Android, we use Kotlin. We also use the MVVM architecture, which stands for Model View View Model Architecture. And I'm going to be explaining the iOS one here. So basically, we start at the top. The green box over there represents our UI layer. Our screen is going to be a view controller, and whenever you want to dismiss or display another screen, we delegate that to a coordinator. So the coordinator is going to perform that. Eventually, if you want to display some data on the screen, the view controller has a reference to the view model, and the view model is basically going to make the glue between the UI layer and our data layer. Our data layer, we have a lot of repositories, and the repository part basically abstracts away where the data is coming from. So the data might be coming from a local store or an API, but it doesn't really matter because the repository is going to be abstracting that. We also rely a lot on RX Swift and RX Java in order to do the bindings. So how do we make releases in our mobile team? So we have weekly release cycles. So every week we have a release DRY that is going to be taking care of the release. Whenever an engineer merges a PR into master, this is going to be sent to our build and deploy internal tool called Blazor. Blazor is then going to build a project, run the unit tests, run the SonarQube quality checks, and then is also going to run the UI tests in Firebase Test Lab. Whenever everything passes, this build is then submitted to the test flight and also Google Play Beta. And there, after that, we have like an internal testing build available. This can be used by anyone inside the company. Then when the release DRI wants to make a new release, it's going to get a release build. This release build is then submitted to the stores. Whenever the stores approve it, then it gets into the hands of our users. If you got curious and want to join our mobile team, I have good news for you. We currently have 2 Android developer positions open, so feel free to apply. Thank you very much for coming to our webinar, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the talks.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much to Isabel and Antonio for giving us an overview of mobile. Obviously, there's an infinite amount of things they could have talked about on mobile. If you're someone who wants to go deep and talk about like the code of that was written for keyboard or for the scanner on iOS or Android, just give us a shout and we're more than happy to talk through the ins and outs and the depth of the code that was written for those features. Okay, thanks again, guys. So the second talk is about to happen now, and that is going to be from Mitchell. So Mitchell is one of our tech leads in the CMS team, the content management system team. And he's going to give us a really interesting and probably deeper talk on the building blocks of what you need to build to put together a CMS. So over to you, Mitchell.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining us here on this webinar. We really appreciate all of you joining us. So like Aidan said, my name is Mitchell Katz. I am a tech lead on the CMS Assets IO team. So CMS stands for Content Management System. It's our platform for building and releasing content to all of our customers. So let's talk a little bit about what CMS Hub is. So CMS Hub really aspires to be both powerful for developers and marketers. Typically, CMSs tend to just pick one of them. For smaller businesses, generally they opt for CMSs that are really powerful for marketers. You know, they allow you to build out your content quickly, you know, produce a web page, edit your web page really easily, but there's less opportunity for a really sophisticated web experience. On the other hand, there's a lot of enterprise CMSs that make it really powerful for developers to build out really intricate experiences, but it makes it really difficult for the marketer, for the content creator, to actually change or build out net new content without contacting their developer. CMS Hub really strives to do both. You know, be powerful for the developer and be powerful for the marketer. Provide an easy interface for someone to create your content, but also allow your developer to build out a powerful web experience. And the way we do that is by making a really strong divide between our developer experience and our marketer experience. So developers, as I'm sure a lot of people on this webinar are, you know, we want to work in code. We want to take advantage of a lot of features that, you know, we kind of take for granted as software engineers, you know, using code, using files, building out sort of CI/CD pipelines, et cetera. That really all revolves around files and local development. Marketers, on the other hand, do not want to go so far into the technical weeds. They really want to be focusing on conversions, on building out content, just really a different sort of set of concerns. And they do that using an in-app experience. And we use what are called templates and modules and themes, or assets, kind of generally as the interface between the two. So a developer writes code for these building blocks, uses Hubble, which is our proprietary templating language, and HTML, CSS, JavaScript, serverless functions to build out these templates, these modules, these themes. These are sort of the scaffolding of your web page. It's the building blocks that a marketer then uses to have an in-app experience to actually create content, adjust settings. So a developer builds out their theme, it's a package of assets, it's a package of files, these templates, these modules, drag and droppable pieces of content, and then passes it off to the marketer, who gets to take advantage of an in-app experience like drag and drop page editing or theme settings, which are ways to change fonts and colors and other things like that, styling, without actually having to touch CSS or rely on developers. But it didn't actually always used to be like this. We used to have a really kind of hodgepodge of like database objects that really didn't provide a friendly experience to either the marketer or the developer. So in our old experience, the CMS, the content management experience before we released our CMS hub back in April, we typically represented templates, these building blocks for for content creators as layouts or D&D templates. They were solely hosted, solely built out of our database, and it just had a really complex mental model, and it was really hard to reason about for both the developer and for the marketer. And we actually had years of code supporting our CMS built on top of this mental model. So it meant that changing it wasn't so easy, but there were a lot of problems with it. So layouts were just simply too technical for a marketer, but not technical enough for a developer. No one was happy with this experience. The D&D template building experience was the sort of like semi drag and drop experience, but it meant that if a marketer wanted to change the layout of a page, they had to hop out of the page editor into what was called the design manager, a totally separate screen in our HubSpot application. So it was a really disjointed experience to really change around your page. And even if they wanted to go into the design manager to change up the layout, it was still too technical for them. It really kind of expected an understanding of CSS and JavaScript. It was had a really complex model with, where everything, you could add CSS or add JavaScript in like 7 different places. It was just a really difficult experience for someone who isn't necessarily a technical person. On the other side of things, the template building experience actually wasn't technical enough for a developer. There wasn't enough flexibility and opportunity, and you're really limited to select few opportunities when it came to how you wanted to put together your web page. And it was still an in-app experience, meaning that a developer, the technical person was actually going into the HubSpot application, dragging and dropping stuff around. And if you wanted to work locally, we did have a JSON definition and some APIs that you could use to sort of sync your D&D template up into HubSpot, but it was a really complex mental model. Because everything was based out of our database, we used IDs, essentially foreign keys IDs, to like cross-reference a module from a template or a template partial from another template. And that also caused a lot of portability and staging issues. So if you wanted to sort of build out your web page, test it in one portal and then copy it into your production portal, you had to go look up what this ID represented, copy that dependency, that module that ID referenced into the new portal first, and then replace that module ID with the new one. It's just a really unpleasant experience for everyone, internally and externally. We knew the world that we wanted to move to. We wanted to move to a world where developers use files. It's something that we probably take for granted as an engineer, as software engineers, but it wasn't an experience that we provided to web developers on HubSpot CMS. Using files provides the opportunity for things like source control, integration with an IDE, and local development where you build out your files locally and then sync them up into HubSpot. So we knew we wanted to get there, but it wasn't trivial. Like I said, we had years of code built on our CMS that expected everything to be in layouts and these database objects. So what our solution to that is file mapping. We created a mapping layer so that would translate any of your local files into a database object that MySQL and our internal systems could understand. And so we built out these file mapping layers for all of the different asset building block types on the HubSpot CMS. And what that allowed us to then do is build out a CLI, a command line interface, where you could build out all of your files locally and then run the CLI to actually sync them up into HubSpot, translate them into these database objects, and build out your page. So now we actually had this portable format where developers could work in code, sync it up into HubSpot, and then provide the in-app editing experience for a content creator. So that was how we helped the developer experience and the marketer experience kind of segment them, separate them. But this also had a ton of internal benefits as well, including how we handled default assets. So when I talk about default assets, I'm talking about the themes that HubSpot builds and provides whenever you sign up for HubSpot Portal. Similarly, the same content platform applies to a bunch of different parts of HubSpot. So our email marketing tool also uses this default asset management system, and we provide 20 emails or something around there to any new HubSpot portal to sort of build out a new email marketing campaign from. Similarly, we also used our default asset management system to deal with modules, which are individually drag and droppable pieces of content that allow a marketer to fill out a form to, in our page editor experience to populate data into the page. But in the old world, all of these assets were individually written to every single portal, which meant that we wrote the exact same row in the database to every single HubSpot account. As you can imagine, this was pretty error prone and frustrating both internally and externally. So whenever we wanted to roll out a new default asset or update an old one, like I said, we would write the exact same row to our content database over and over and over again. All of these database rights, as you can see, like there was a time where we rolled out 3 new modules to all of our Marketing Hub portals, and that led to almost 2.5 million database rights. All of these database rights leads to database replica lag. So what that means is that our editor service, which ran against our primary database, would have a page editing experience, and you would build out your page to look a certain way, and then you click publish, and then the published version, because our rendering service runs against our replicas, the published version would look different. Similarly, whenever we wanted to update all of our email templates, it could take up to 24 hours, which meant that it was slow to validate your changes. And if you had to roll it back, that's another 24 hours where you have bad templates pushed out to every single portal. Similarly, as you can imagine, customers noticed this. At one point, we pushed out a buggy default module during a batch update, and 15 customers had to call into HubSpot support to get help, understand why their modules were broken. So we knew we had to do something about this. And even the process of starting one of these delivery rollouts was pretty painful. So internally, the process was one of our internal developers would hop into our design manager, which is one of the applications within HubSpot, paste in the code for the new modules that they wanted to publish, then hop into a different internal only app called the Marketplace Admin, find the changes they wanted, approve the diffs, and then start a rollout, which could lead to, like I said, thousands to nearly 1 million deliveries, where each delivery is one or multiple database rights. It's just a huge waste of time and effort, and we knew we had to do something about it. Just couldn't scale anymore. Our solution to that was using a tool called Hollow. Hollow is an open source tool built out by Netflix originally, and the idea is that it's a producer-consumer module where a producer creates a payload, syncs it up into Hollow, and then all of the Hollow consumers know how to pull down that data and hold it in memory. These Hollow consumers are read-only, and they're super powerful deduplicating capabilities, so you can actually hold hundreds of gigabytes of data in memory without crashing your JVM. What this meant is that we could create a pipeline where we would create a payload of all of the new default assets, publish it to Hollow, and then every single backend service that needed to have those default asset definitions would automatically pull down those diffs, update their local stores, and then you would instantly have all of the new default asset data. Of course, there's a lot of other tools that we needed to help supplement this process to make it a really sort of internally friendly experience. But what we were able to do is build out a pipeline so that our internal teams could just create a PR with all the code, all the default assets we want, build it using our internal build tool, that Blazor tool that Isabel and Antonio mentioned earlier, use our Orion, our normal deploy tool, to actually deploy those changes into QA or production. And all of these new default assets would instantly appear in all of our customer portals. We could make the time to validate our changes went from 24 to 5 minutes. Deploying out new assets was now easy, straightforward, and it mirrored the SDLC that the rest of HubSpot engineering got to enjoy. So while this change kind of seemed a little insignificant, it actually opened up a huge world of possibility for all of our internal team that and passing it back to you now, Aidan.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that, Mitchell. I wonder, do all the marketers know the amount of work that we do to get their CMS up and running so they can update blog posts or whatever they do with their CMS? Appreciate you giving us the details there on the CMS. It was a huge, huge project inside in HubSpot over the last couple of years to make it bigger, better, and stronger. So again, that was just the tip of the iceberg on pieces that we're working on the CMS product. Okay, let's take a quick breather for like 2 seconds. A little bit of Zoom fatigue can kick in if we go to the next talk too quickly. So we'll just slow it down a touch. But the final talk now is going to be coming from Kevin Moses. He is a tech lead of the billing admin team as well. And he has the difficult job of building and scaling a subscription system or billing system in a company. And anyone that's worked with billing, anyone that's worked with subscriptions, where you have to build stuff yourselves, know how complex it can be and know how important it is to get it right. So really looking forward to what you have to say about that, Kevin. So over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending. Today, I'm going to talk to you about billing at HubSpot and how we are enabling our engineers to move quickly and iterate on some of our most sensitive software. In a moment, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. Then I'll give you a brief overview of our billing system at HubSpot. Following that, I'll give you an overview of Release Radar, which is the system we designed to solve this problem. Finally, I'll look into the future of how we're going to continue to enable our FinTech or financial technology teams to move quickly and autonomously. And that is what is at the core of our engineering philosophy at HubSpot. My name is Kevin Moses. I'm the tech lead of the FinTech automation team, which I helped spin up this past summer. I've been at HubSpot for 5 years in total, and in the past, I've worked on the billing admin team, which is responsible for a lot of the internal tooling that our representatives use to help our customers with billing problems and administer their accounts. And on platform infrastructure as a front-end engineer. This was a really interesting experience for me as I learned that building out tools for our developers means that our users sit right next to us, and we're able to really multiply the productivity of everyone at HubSpot by building out tools like you've seen Blazar, Orion for deploying code, monitoring, logging, all of these things that really make HubSpot stand out. And I'm also, like I said, a front-end engineer, and I work mainly on JavaScript and our React stack here at HubSpot. If you aren't already aware, HubSpot is a software as a service company that operates on a subscription revenue model. This means that customers sign contracts and pay us on a set interval to use our software. Our billing system needs to be able to keep track of a lot of important objects for this, which includes customers, subscriptions, invoices, payments, and refunds, just to name a few. Here's a very high-level view of what our billing system looks like. We have several third-party providers that are responsible for processing information. For example, Zora handles proration of subscription revenue and generates invoice amounts for our customers. Aidan processes bank and credit card payments, and our general ledger is synced to NetSuite. You can think of a general ledger as a record of all of HubSpot's transactions during the month, and at the end, these should all add up to an actual profit the company made from sales. HubSpot billing system is the layer that connects all of these providers together. We need to offer bi-directional synchronization between them and ensure customers are billed accurately and the company's numbers are correct. One reason why all this accuracy is important is that HubSpot is a publicly traded company. By law, our numbers need to be reported to shareholders on a quarterly basis. And as you might imagine, there are a lot of regulations in place to make sure companies aren't doing anything nefarious with the revenue that they're reporting that would mislead shareholders. A famous example of this was Enron, which was an energy company whose board fudged their profit in the early 2000s and were eventually prosecuted. The company went bankrupt soon after. So it's clear that accurately reporting our numbers is critical. Even small errors need to be properly audited and corrected. Therefore, our internal business partners in finance, IT security, the board of directors, as well as external auditors need to trust our billing software. Mid last year, we were encountering a high rate of bugs per week. Quality was low and concern was high that the release process was eventually locked down. To ship code to production, our engineering teams need to create Jira release tickets, which is an internal ticketing system for every deploy containing a detailed description and risk assessment of the changes. complete testing information, rollout and rollback plans, and a sign-off from finance and security required for anything to go out. This resulted in a high level of manual scrutiny, manual approvals, and heavy oversight added to get quality under control. Rushed investment in this fragile system of wide test automation based on complex subscription change scenarios. Basically what this means is we've accomplished the mission of making our software more reliable, but at the cost of productivity and developer enjoyment. This chart shows the average number of deploys to production each team in FinTech was doing per month. Our release cadence dropped off dramatically when this process was instituted. Not only was this causing a lot of delays for us getting features out that would help our customers, but paradoxically, the risk of deployments increased as the code backed up and releases grew huge and hard to reason about. Teams were afraid to ship anything at all. Now, our solution, we realized, had to fit a few top-level requirements. We didn't want to force our teams to use Jira for everything. We give our teams a lot of autonomy at HubSpot, and that should extend to the process that they use in order to track their work. Change sets should be communicated automatically with stakeholders. Documentation, testing, and approval requirements should be validated automatically rather than relying on manual screenshots and introducing the possibility for human error. And in the end, teams in FinTech should be enabled to deploy just as rapidly and follow the same testing processes as the rest of HubSpot. So last month, we introduced Release Radar to FinTech. This system automatically detects pull requests on repositories that are in the scope of our billing system and displays these changes in a new UI. It notifies approvers when necessary based on the assessed risk of these changes. And finally, releases are updated and communicated automatically when the code is deployed. So I'll take you through some images of our tool, and you guys can get a sense of exactly what the developer experience is like inside of FinTech now. Engineers have the ability to fill out change documentation forms directly in pull requests inside of GitHub. This keeps the knowledge close to the code and fits in with the already established code review process. Pending changes are shown in the Release Radar UI that shows everything that's been PR'd or merged, but not yet in production, as well as which deployables they affect. This is done based on the fact that Blazar, our build system, is smart enough to only rebuild the modules that were directly impacted by a code change. We then perform validations on releases that are compiled through this UI. Compiled releases are validated against acceptance tests that exist, both across FinTech and owned by individual teams. Approvers are automatically notified via Slack, and release is automatically closed and stakeholders notified when appropriate builds are deployed to production. Teams spend less time waiting for results to pass, waiting for approvals, and waiting to deploy. This speeds up our iteration cycle and makes releases smaller, easier to reason about, and manual documentation and communication work is reduced. Errors are automatically caught, so we know that the system is working. Overall, engineer trust and trust in our teams as a whole has gone up, development cadence is increasing, and the financial risk of changes to our billing system has been reduced dramatically. So what's next? Here you can see a chart, the same one of FinTech releases on average per team, as well as that of HubSpot at large. We just introduced this system last month, and we're already seeing dividends in the month of November. We expect to close this gap more and more as time goes on, and we continue to refine our process. But as you can see, teams at HubSpot are remarkably fast and iterative in their development style. And as a whole, HubSpot product teams have deployed to production more than 700,000 times so far in 2020. The next steps from here, we want to get everyone on Release Radar who needs to be. All of our core FinTech teams are using it for their releases now, and we're working to identify any periphery systems that are owned by other teams that would benefit from following this process. We want to improve our risk assessment so that the documentation that developers need to fill out is right-sized. That means we make better risk decisions around what financial risk exists, and we ask more relevant questions and only require these approvals when absolutely necessary. Finally, we want to decentralize testing. Right now, we have a very large suite of end-to-end integration tests for our entire billing system. We want to start to move away from these because they're extremely fragile and ownership is unclear. Teams will be in charge of their own destiny when they have comprehensive integration tests that not only cover their systems, but as the edges between theirs and other team system as well. This is going to democratize testing in FinTech, ensure that teams have a handle on their own reliability, just like they do with the rest of the company. So I appreciate you guys attending today, and I hope you enjoyed this look into billing at HubSpot, and I'll throw it back to the rest of the team for a follow-up and for any questions.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much for that, Kevin. It's the first time I heard about Release Radar as well. Very, very interesting stuff. Now is the time. If you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. We actually have a few questions coming in through different channels as well, so we're going to answer those questions first. So have a little think. If you have any questions for Isabel or Antonio or Mitchell or Kevin or anyone else, please add them there. Yeah, let's kick it off. I think we have 2 or 3 questions so far. Okay, let me just scroll through the list. Okay, first question is, what skills are you most looking for in engineers applying to the mobile team? Maybe I can answer the start of that question and I can pass it over to either Isabel or Antonio. Maybe Antonio, I'll go to you with this one. But for me, I think what we're looking for from anybody joining any part of the engineering team, it kind of says it pretty clearly in our culture code, and it's the stuff under heart, right? So we're looking for people that are humble, we're looking for people who are empathetic, people that are adaptable, remarkable, and transparent. We want team players, we want people with growth mindset that come in and just make everyone around them stronger and better, right? So it's not necessarily about having the strongest, deepest technical skills always. It's about being this all-rounder team player, someone that looks after other people, looks after themselves, and especially in these COVID times, having empathy for others goes such a long way, right? So I think that's the very, very first thing we look at when we're bringing people into HubSpot. But for more kind of harder skills on the mobile side, yeah, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this one, Antonio.
Right, thank you very much, Aidan. So I'll take over from now. So basically, we look for people that have a strong passion for mobile, people that already have a few apps in the stores already, some examples of like the work they have developed. Also, like if possible, like we have some experience with different mobile architectures. I know that we use MVVM here, but we have Viper, we have MVC, we have other ways of other architectures out there. If someone is already like good at RX Swift, that will be amazing as well. Experience with Swift UI, good as well, although this is new. Also very important, like someone that really cares about shipping software with quality and cares a lot about testing. So I think that will be like the main skills that we were looking for in a mobile developer.
Awesome. Thank you very much for giving us that answer, Antonio. Okay, I'm just going to get onto the next question. And this one is towards mobile as well. So how do you evaluate what tech to use from Google and Apple, seeing as there is so much available? So I'm assuming so many different choices from Kotlin and Java and SwiftUI and others. So yeah, Antonio, you picked this one, you answered the last one. So maybe Isabel, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this question.
Yeah, sure. So really nice question, this one. Yeah, I think basically, first we trust our engineers and we have a space to try things out. So I think this is the first thing. The second one is that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if there is a solution already available, solves our problem, has a good documentation, I think documentation is important and is used by a lot of people. So yeah, we can try and make sure this works for us. You know, it will do the job. So I think that's it. I hope this answered the question.
Perfect. I hope it did as well. I think this is the second last question. We got 2 more. So Mitchell, you're looking to add on to one of those questions as well. Do you want to give an answer to one of the questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to tack onto Isabel's answer a little bit when it comes to picking technologies. So HubSpot has a really kind of strong and robust platform infrastructure team. So a lot of our technology choices are really predetermined by the platform infra teams. And so they built out fantastic support for a lot of the typical tech stack. And so when it comes to, you know, what database you're going to choose, or, you know, what message processing system you're going to use, those choices are typically already made for us, just because we have really strong support for MySQL already, and we have really strong support for Amazon SQS and stuff like that. That being said, though, if there's ever a gap in our technology support, we're always welcome to pick something else. You know, there's no sort of auditing or like major requirements when it comes, for most product teams, that is. There's no huge requirements when it comes to like picking new technology. So if there's a gap and there's a technology that's going to fill that gap, it's really up to every individual team and every individual engineer to pick that best technology. So while we do have built-in support in our stack for a lot of these, for a lot of technologies, we're always welcome to pick more, and we're always welcome to pick the right technology for the job.
Amazing. Thank you for that answer, Mitchell. So that wraps up all the questions. Can all the presenters please throw on your camera just for 1 second as we end this talk? If you're still there, perfect, yeah. Amazing. Just a quick thank you from me for jumping on and doing this at such short notice. Really appreciate the effort and the work you put in. Really interesting talks. To everyone that was on the talk, I hope you learned a little bit more about technology, a little bit more about HubSpot, what we do and how we work. If you have any questions at all, if you have any thoughts, come find any of the 5 of us, hunt us down, or look for Stephen or anyone else who kind of got in contact to get you to come to this talk in the first place, right? No question is not allowed. Please feel free to say hello. So with that, again, a big thank you to the 4 presenters. Really appreciate it. I thought it was a great job. And thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Awesome. Thanks all. Bye.